Hello, everybody. In this episode, which I think it will be an important one because we will talk about the logical, we can put it like a logical cohesion or coherence of the formal systems, which may help for the decidability of fiqh rules or the rules of fiqh. Welcome, sir, again to our episode. And yeah, you can go ahead.
Welcome, Ahmed. We were discussing last time the core issue which we dealt with in our first publication about fiqh algorithms, and we said that when you start formalizing things in any discipline, it's not necessarily in fiqh, because when you start formalizing and especially
Fiqh in English jurisprudence for the people who may not
yeah, well,
familiar with the.
by this time any viewer of our series of podcast maybe is now familiar with the term fiqh actually.
Yeah, yeah, but anyway.
when 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 you start formalizing any discipline,
Mm,
especially using logics to do this, as we saw, fiqh from its beginning,
mm,
what is written down, what was written down when it was formalized inside the schools of the schools of fiqh, the classical
mm,
schools of fiqh,
mm,
at the end, around the end of the Umayyad era.
mm,
It was formalized already using Aristotelian and similar logics.
mm,
Also, the Arabic language was formalized, and also using some logical ideas coming from uh, the translations, which at that time started, but not only from the translations, also from the rational thinking, from this emancipation of rational thinking, which was led by, which was actually, as we saw also, enhanced largely by the Quran itself. Quran pushed the people to rationalize, so they started to think logically. So they started to formalize whatever they are doing, and so when you formalize any discipline and use logic, especially for this formalization, you will have to discuss the issue of correctness and completeness of the logical system.
mm,
So with correctness, we mean that if I use my logics or my formal logics to deduce something, to infer something from a set of hypotheses or a set of axioms, this something must be semantically correct. So I call this correctness of, or it is called the correctness of the logical system. The
mm,
completeness of a logical system means we are just speaking about logics here,
mm,
independent of the application. So correctness of the formal logical system is the fact that whatever you deduce is also semantically correct. It's not inconsistent with your semantics. When I say a logical system is complete, on the other hand, I mean that for any semantically concrete circumstance, or for any semantic proposition, from anything which I may be able to semantically infer from my system, I have also a derivation. Means I have my machinery, my inference machinery is capable of deducing all types of semantic deductions.
mm,
This is what I call completeness. Now, when we studied fiqh in this first paper, and we said that we are going to take logics, we had to discuss also this issue and compare it to fiqh. So we propose these two propositions. We propose to say that in Islamic jurisprudence, if there exists a fiqh rule for the deduction of any legal verdict, then we call this a consistent legislation. Of course, we discussed why we said legislation. Legislation makes us more nearer to law and so on, to modern law, which is you can discuss it whether it is appropriate or not. What is the difference between
And the
modern law
episode of questions. Yeah, we will
and
take.
there are a lot of questions, but this is these are the hypotheses of our work. So we said that if for every legal verdict or حكم فقهي, if for every verdict verdict,
ruling.
every ruling, you have a rule. You can, for example, if I say we cannot make wudu with Pepsi or with cola, like we discussed last time, and then somebody will ask you why, you should be able to bring a rule.
Yeah.
Or a set of a formal deduction to say, because this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because we have this and that, and we deduce this and that.
Okay.
And so the first proposition puts it corresponds to the concept of correctness in mathematical logics. Now, for the second proposition, if for every legal or fiqh question there exists a verdict, then I call this a complete legislation. Means there is no question which you can pose to the fiqh school. For example, if I say a fiqh school is complete, or a fiqh school or a fiqh chapter, maybe I say the chapter of wudu within the fiqh school of Shafi'i is complete, then if I say this, I mean that it is that whatever question you can ask to the formal system, you will find a verdict, you will find a hukm. So these two propositions, if you combine them together, you get that the chapter or the fiqh school or the formal system within this boundary is decidable. So it is actually a prerequisite for decidability. Both of them, consistency of legislation and completeness of legislation, as we define them here, is a prerequisite for decidability. This is why it is important. Now, we could discuss a lot of things around this, but the moment we say decidable, if you remember, we are now going within the realm now of even programming. We'll come nearer and nearer to the programming part.
We are going deeper in your project, by the way.
To make things really algorithmically possible, to be able to write programs to assist fiqh, of course, the decidability is important. If I have a problem which is undecidable, I cannot program it.
Okay.
Yeah? So this is why it is very important to choose, when we are going to choose a formal system for fiqh, and this is still, by the way, a debatable question. What we chose is a certain modification of Aristotelian for our project, but somebody can come and say, no, let's use, for example, mathematical logics, or or somebody will come and invent a new logic and say, let us use this and that logic. But
so
anyhow,
is it possible to find a new logic, or to devise a new logic?
Of course, this is possible. What we are saying is not possible, but it should answer or fill all the gaps which people found in other logics. Like, for example, there is something called modal logics, and modal logics deals with the concept of necessity and possibility. Yeah. So the proposition is not only true or false, but it's true or false relative to a certain set of beliefs and so on. So there are a lot of possibilities which you can choose from. What we discussed or what we investigated are the big two. What are the big Aristotelian or mathematical logics? And then we found out that both of them are not really suitable. So we had to choose something in between, as we discussed before. So anyhow, whatever logics you choose, you need to, because you want to use it for the machinery of fiqh, for the algorithm of fiqh, you need to take care or to be sure that it is decidable. Whatever you do is decidable. Otherwise, you cannot write program. So this is why these two propositions were important. And so lemma one in our, which we prove actually, in the paper we prove lemma one. If proposition one and two are both valid, then Islamic jurisprudence would be complete with respect to a set of given fiqh axioms and intrinsic formal system of deduction. So this is a way. Now here comes again something a little philosophical. So one way, for me at least, for me, I mean, it must, you can say I don't share this view with you, but for me at least, this is a new understanding. This is how I understand the completeness of Sharia. Actually, every Muslim on earth actually believes that Sharia is complete. And when you ask him, what do you mean by complete? He or she, they will say, we mean by complete that it covers all possible areas of life and so on, which is a very correct assertion, because Quran amplifies it, Hadith amplifies it, but it has also a technical, it might have also a technical flavor, and this is exactly the technical flavor I'm thinking of, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the axioms in Quran, but he gave us also the possibility to produce formal systems. So the formal system combined with the axioms of Quran will indeed form this completeness of legislation, even in a formal way. So when I say it, fiqh, a chapter of tayammum, for example, in Al-Shafi'i is complete, I truly mean formal completeness. So I mean actually formal completeness. I don't only mean semantic completeness, but formal means that for every question I have an answer, and the answer is a verdict, and for every such answer I have an explanation. So if the explanation with rules, of course. So if I have these two properties of my formal system, then of course it is a complete system, because you can always find your answers, and you can also have the rational explanation of your answer. Now, this is one. So now we come to another application. Why is a formal system? We said, so the one important aspect which comes with formalizing or studying again the formal system of fiqh is this decidability issue and completeness and correctness. Another thing is the revision of ruling examples using the formal system. So now this is another use of formalization. I'm giving here a direct example. There is a very known dispute between the schools of Ahnaf and Shafi'i about the conditions necessary for i'tikaf. So if a person, now this is a concrete question in fiqh. Now I'm taking now a concrete question of fiqh and showing you and also your audience how formalizing of this and putting this in a formal way, in a symbolic way, can help us find problems or be sure of the deductions. So this example is actually about i'tikaf. So if a person pledges to perform the practice of i'tikaf and fast in the same time, so he pledges that he will say, I will do i'tikaf and fast in the same time. The fasting is a necessary condition for the validity of one's i'tikaf, according to all scholars. So they agree that if I say I want to do i'tikaf and fast in the same time, I'll have to do it for my i'tikaf to be valid. They all agree. Yani Shafi'i and Hanafi both agree on this. But if one pledges to perform the i'tikaf and pray, so if I pledge to make i'tikaf and pray all the time within the i'tikaf, combining both acts is not necessary for the validity of one's i'tikaf. So they agree. So they agree on two things. So this mas'ala, or this question, starts with two assumptions. The first assumption is that they all agree, if you pledge to fast and do your i'tikaf in the same time, you have to do both. Yeah. And they also agree, if you say I'm doing i'tikaf with salah, they agree. They also agree that salah, if you don't do the salah, i'tikaf is still valid. Yeah. So because evidently you cannot every second of your i'tikaf do salah. You might rest, you can do something like this. So it's I mean, from the logical point of view, even not from the rational point of view, even clear why fasting is not like salah. Yeah. Fasting is something it's abstention of doing something. Salah is an action. Yeah. But anyhow, so the scholars differ. Now what is the difference? The scholars differ as to the condition of fasting during the i'tikaf if this concerned person has not made a pledge. Now they differ in, they ask themselves, if somebody doesn't pledge to do i'tikaf, to do fasting, is it still necessary that he fast? Abu Hanifa requires fasting in all cases. So Al-Ahnaf require for i'tikaf that you fast also. Whether you pledged or not, whether you did nadhr or not.
So i'tikaf is associated with fasting.
For Abu Hanifa, it is required that you fast while you are doing i'tikaf. While Shafi'i does not require fasting as a condition. Now this is a question which we chose to formalize. When you formalize it, of course, before that, Abu Hanifa gives the following formula of inverse analogy. He uses something called inverse analogy, قياس العكس. Abu Hanifa uses inverse analogy. He says, on the basis of analogy with prayer, قياسا على الصلاة, on the basis of analogy with prayer, had fasting be unnecessary for the validity of i'tikaf when it is not pledged, it would not be a necessary condition when it is specifically pledged. In the case of prayer, as it is not a necessary condition when not pledged, it remains unnecessary when pledged. Thus, taking prayer as a primary case, the established verdict is that it is not a necessary condition for the validity of i'tikaf, with the reason being that it is not obligatory when pledged. The established verdict on the secondary case is that fasting is a necessary condition for the validity of i'tikaf, with the reason being that it becomes obligatory when pledged. So he's actually saying, had the fast, if I compare fasting to salah, if he's comparing, the analogy is between fasting and salah. He says that because if they were exactly the same, salah and fasting, we should have had also that if you pledged salah, you need to do the salah. But because they are not the same here, this means that fasting is a necessary condition, while salah is not a necessary condition. So when I formalize this in the following way. I put symbol, i'tikaf is done. PRV, prayed consistently during i'tikaf. PGV, pledged performed before i'tikaf. FV, fasting observed during i'tikaf. So I convert this observation or this
pullings into symbols.
So yeah, this argument I convert it like this. And now this could also be in mathematical logics. It's not the formulation here I used is just a very common propositional formulation, so-called. So you can write the secondary case in this way: Fs and PGV implies FV, and all this implies FS implies FV.
Mm.
And the inverse of this implies this. So the analogy goes in the following. It is known that FS and PGV implies FV, so we have FS implies FV, and it is arrived, this assertion is arrived at through the inverse of the reason of the primary case and by substituting PRV by FV. Now,
So
if you take,
in this case, did we combine between the Aristotelian logic and the mathematical one?
no. You could also express this in Aristotelian logic, but for simplicity, because Aristotelian logic needs a little more detailed explanation. I used very quickly the mathematical logic version.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is that here, all of a sudden, you deal with formulas. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't deal with natural language. You deal directly with formulas, and if you are expert enough, you directly see the problem also. Now, when I convert this into the formula, I directly see the problem because, and here I will show you. Fact is that the reason in the primary case is not only the inverse of SS and so on. Had it been so, it would not have been possible to use this analogy because this reason is not necessary and sufficient for this formula. So this formula is not sufficient and necessary for this formula as per logics. So the laws of logics tell us that this formula is not sufficient and necessary for this formula. Immediately we see the problem. So the correct reason is inverse. So the reason is not only this part, which is here, but this part and this part. Actually, this means that prayer is not essential for the validity of i'tikaf, whether pledged or not. Hence, the secondary case, this expression.
The secondary case we mean by fasting, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if in the primary case there was a problem in formulation. Yeah. The verdict is correct. The Hanafi verdict is correct, but the problem is that the formula is missing a part. Yeah, they should have said that prayer is not essential for the validity of the i'tikaf, whether pledged or not. But what they said, they only took the pledged part, not the not part. So to complete the reasoning, you should have a formula like this. Hence, the secondary case is also like this. So I completed using this insight. I completed also the secondary case. Got a different formula than the first one. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyhow, I don't want to go in detail. The people who are
it's very technical. Very technical.
Yeah, it is very technical, but I wanted to show you that from a normal, natural way of expressing the
we can formalize it.
We can formalize, and we can immediately using the known laws of logics find problems if they are, and in that case we found in this publication we have shown that there is here a missing part in the formula of the Ahnaf, while their reasoning was right, but the way they are expressing it in the books is missing this part. They should have said that prayer is not essential for the validity of the i'tikaf, whether pledged or not. Yeah. So they should have put the pledging and its negation within the formula, actually, to be complete from the formal point of view. So you can think of how many qiyas. Of course, this is analogy. This is qiyas. This is not Aristotelian. This is qiyas. So and still we can use it. We can, using our formal methods, criticize these verdicts and find out whether they are complete or not, they are truly written or not. Now here in this case, we are convinced that Ahnaf are right. Why? Because their deduction is right. Of course, there are some people who say this inverse analogy is not valid. قياس العكس is not valid. They refuse
And
to
there
use
is
that.
there is the other قياس is called قياس الطرد.
Yeah, but so
Inverse,
قياس
yeah.
العكس is actually not valid for these people exactly because of the reason which we were seeing here, that to apply قياس العكس you have to have the relation, not only the relation of implication, means not only the arrow is in one direction, you should have also the arrow in the other direction. Yeah. So this is why they refuse actually. They are right when saying we cannot apply قياس العكس this way. Yeah. But you could apply it if you complete the picture in the way we are doing. So as you see, we imagine how many قياس verdicts we can take and then convert into this form and then find out whether they are right or wrong, or whether they are complete or not. Okay, now we come to our perspective, our FSF project. So our goals and assumptions of our, now I am describing here our goal, yeah, the goal of our project. When I say our or we, I mean the scientific the people who helped doing this project within our scientific foundation. Goals and assumptions are, first of all, choosing an appropriate formal system to model ruling of a given fiqh school. So choosing the system in itself is a very important task. And of course, to choose the system, we assume that the school's rulings are already properly linked to scripture. Now, this is a very important assumption in our work, because we don't want to open all problems in the same time. This is absurd. We cannot, for example, if I want to also open the proper the linking between scripture and the rules and rulings of the fiqh schools, if I open this is a very huge project alone. So we are just as we take, for example, a certain school, Al-Shafi'i. In our case, we took Al-Shafi'i because I am fond of Al-Shafi'i, actually. The only reason, because I am fond of Shafi'i and of Al-Ghazali, and Al-Ghazali was a Shafi'i scholar. So therefore we took this this school. We could have taken also Maliki, we could have taken Hanafi, but we assume that whatever they write about their qawaid, about their rules is correct, and we took it and formalized it. So assuming this, we chose the formal system. I'm going to discuss very briefly what formal system we chose, but the first part was choosing the appropriate formal system, and then formalizing the fiqh terminology, questions and rules using this formal system. Like we saw in the last example, you just formalize whatever is there, assuming a closed ontology. Now, this is a very important aspect of our work. Of course, if I open, when I say ontology here, I mean terminological definitions. Like, for example, in باب التيمم itself, how do I define tayammum? It takes the definition of tayammum from the given school. For example, Al-Ahnaf, they had a certain definition of tayammum, or Al-Shafi'i, I will take it and I will consider it to be my epistemological or terminological ontology. Yeah? And I assume this ontology is closed. Why I'm saying here closed? This is a very subtle point, because if you consider, take for example the chapter on tayammum in any fiqh school. Of course, no one will come and invent a new tayammum method. Yeah? No one will come and invent a new wudu method. So even your terminology is limited, and it is fixed, or at least relatively fixed. It will not change over time, or let's say the change over time of your own terminology in the, for example, wudu chapter or in the tayammum chapter is very slow. If you, I mean, you could also do something like a statistical examination, but you will find that there are no new concepts.
Yeah, there are slight differences in details,
There
small
are slight
details.
differences, but there are also no new concepts since the beginning. There are no new there is no one will
Yeah,
come
that's clear. Yeah, yeah.
with a new wudu idea, for example. Yeah. So this is what I call a closed chapter. So it's actually a closed. Why it's closed? Because the terminology and the epistemological ontology is fixed. Yeah. Again, this is an assumption. It's all working assumption. If you remember, we are doing a model. Yeah. We said
Okay.
that whatever we do with the machine, it's a model actually.
Okay.
So I'm not pretending that this is what Allah wanted in Quran. Yeah. But I'm saying that it is an approximation of what the fuqaha, the faqih, put in his book and in his rulings. So there is a big difference between me saying that this is what Allah
It's
wanted
clear.
from the Muslim in the Quran, and between me saying this is what Al-Shafi'i school intended to do with their rulings. Yeah,
Yeah.
a big difference. So this is the second part is very important. The fiqh, formalizing the fiqh terminology, choosing a school, assuming that the rules are already properly linked to scriptures, and number three, revising already existing qiyas-based fatwas, like we just saw about this Īʿtikāf example, putting all this together in a programming environment which includes automatic question and answer. Now, our methodology, after choosing Al-Shafi'i school, and we chose here the main book, actually, Al-Khatib al-Shirbini, the main book, it's one of the major.
One might say, why this especially this special?
Why is it?
special?
Because
Yeah.
it is very typical for Shafi'i school. So I just took the most typical one and put it, and it is also very detailed. It's a huge volume. It's not it's a number actually of volumes, 4 volumes or something like this.
Okay.
So after choosing this the Shafi'i school and the main book, fiqh terminology was extracted and put into 3 form, like I'm going to show now. Then I used the computer to generate all possible questions. And then I inferred inductively the rules using the machine, and those rules will apply then on questions to given answers. Now, this is the methodology we are using in a very vague explanation. First, we chose this fiqh terminology, and remember, if it is a closed ontology or closed terminology, this means that you have only just maybe 4 or 5 or 6 basic wordings, basic keywords. Yeah? السفر والإقامة, travel, and المرض والصحة, being in tayammum. If you take tayammum, what makes you make tayammum? If you are ill, yeah. So the fact that you are ill or not ill, this is a decision variable. The fact that you are traveling or not, the fact that you are you find water or you don't have water. So this is only part of the fiqh terminology which we decided in the beginning.
I think we have less than 1 minute, so would you like to show us the figures?
Next time I will show next time this picture explaining more. This is now a concrete picture of the tree which has been done, and we used. I mean, it has been done with fuqaha, some scholars, or some at least some master students and doctor students helped us to extract this tree from the book. I will speak about it in the next time.
Okay. So I think it's we have to stop to conclude here at this point, and in the next episode, God willing, inshallah, we will take the rest. I think that the remaining parts are most of them are figures and things that
We will
explains
see. There are
the
some issues which will have to be discussed, but mostly demonstrations, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Wahab, for your precious time, and see you in the next episode, inshallah.